Hello, Viva Birdos. It is so good to be back with you for another Riders podcast here with the writing team from Viva. We've got from my left, I don't know how it'll be on the screen on YouTube, and those of you that are listening don't care what order it's in because you're listening and not watching. But we got Connor Lemons on our left there, and then Heather Scooter Simon is with us again today. I don't see the dogs. Are they back there somewhere? Or are they running around the neighborhood?
I got one right here to my right. He's just not on the screen yet. And then there's a cat wandering around somewhere.
Good. Well, I'm sure they'll make their big debuts here soon. Then Blake is with us again. Hey, Blake.
Hey, guys.
And Gabe, Mr., as I keep saying, but I mean it sincerely, Mr. Miles Nicholas himself has joined us fresh off his flu shot.
Yep.
And I should say, too, it's good to have Connor with us because Connor is up to his eyeballs in Ohio State content this time of year, but great to pull him away for a little bit of baseball here at the end of the beginning of the off season. So
I can pull a little double duty, no worries.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, Viva, we've got a lot to talk about since our last podcast. It took us a while to get everyone together. It seems like our lives got really busy all at the same time. So we've got all kinds of news to cover. And so we're going to back up a little bit and sort of cover everything that we've seen happen over the last 2 or 3 weeks since the end of the season. John Mozeliak, team president, had his big end of the season press conference a week or two ago, and all kinds of news came out of that, including, but not limited to, Nolan Arenado ended up opting back in. That was expected at the news conference. It came a couple days later. Adam Wainwright is returning for one more season in Cardinals red. We'll talk about that too. And then huge changes on the coaching staff. First of all, Skip Schumacher, bench coach for the Cardinals, brought over from San Diego, has now left to be the manager of the Marlins. We can debate the wisdom of that move, but at least he moves to the big chair. Mike Maddox is stepping back from the pitching coach role, maybe to another role to be announced. And then probably one we'll spend the most time on, Cardinal hitting coach Jeff Albert resigned from his position after the Cardinals tried to offer him a new contract. And he is a coaching free agent out there looking for something new and maybe something a little more friendly to his constitutions. So that's the big news. We're going to try to hit on that and then maybe kind of jump into some off-season stuff. So I think the biggest news of all that, maybe not the most interesting, and in my opinion, the most expected, is that Nolan Arenado, the Cardinals now Gold Glove winning again, third baseman, is back and in the fold and locked in for several more years. Guys, that's a good thing, right? Heather, too. I hate to just say guys because Heather would be, in fact, a girl. So I'm going to start with you, Heather, since I singled you out. Arenado's back. What's your reaction?
I'm excited. I saw a funny tweet about that. It was like, I think from a Cub.
There we go. There's the first step.
I was waiting. He was waiting for us to start.
Yep.
I saw a funny tweet about it, though. I think it was from Bleacher Nation or something about like how the Cardinals can't even, or like Nolan Arenado won't even opt out and make the Cardinals have to like sign him for more money or anything like that. Like, of course he just decides to opt in. But yeah, I'm excited. I wanted Nolan Arenado on the team when they first traded for him, and I was hoping that he wouldn't opt out. And I think it'll be good to have that part of the infield shored up for the next couple of years.
Yep. Anyone wish that he would have opted out? Anyone want to argue that point?
Yeah.
I can't even me. Sometimes I'll play devil's advocate just for fun. I can't even think of a good argument for why anyone would have wanted him to opt out, other than maybe Jordan Walker would get to play and they could save the money for something else. But that's a real stretch. So
Right.
After his year last year, there was a possibility that him opting out would have been better for the Cardinals. I don't think that is in any way true at this point.
Yeah.
And also, I think he's got a below market contract if you factor in what the Cardinals are actually paying, especially if you factor in what the Cardinals are actually paying. So yeah, it would be absurd to be mad at this. I am a little surprised they didn't announce like they're adding 20 million in his last year or something, just for I don't know, because usually you got a below market thing. I know the MLBPA tries to pressure players into accepting either more years or more money instead of opting in without anything. So I'm a little surprised by that. That's about it, though. I expected him to opt in, and I expected him to do so because then the Rockies would still be on the hook, which means the Cardinals could spend more money, which I know Arenado would be all about.
Doesn't that contract like decrease towards the back end, which is kind of the opposite of what a lot of big contracts do? Isn't that why I was a little surprised that he just opted back in without any kind of deliberations or changes? Was that like the sticking point?
Yeah, I see if I can do this off the top of my head because I don't want to take the time on radio here to look up the contract on COTS or Spotify, but pretty sure it's 35 million this year, next year, and I'm not sure about 2025, but I think it's 3 years at 35 million, and then it's maybe 30 million and then 27 million. Those might be wrong. I know the last number is 27 million. And but what year that is, I'm not sure. And so yeah, I do
I
what,
got
Gabe?
Yeah, it's 35 million, 35 million, 32 million, 27 million. Last year's 15 million.
Oh, really?
That's the added on year that
Oh,
you didn't
yeah.
wait
Okay,
to trade.
right. I remember looking at that in COTS, and they would have put that in a different part of the contract because it wasn't part of the original deal. Yeah, yeah. So a 15. Yeah, you would have thought maybe that one would have gotten raised. That wouldn't have surprised me at all. But you know, Arenado clearly is about winning, and clearly understands that the team has something of a budget to work with, considering he's made 2 deferrals in salary in just the 2 years that he's been with the team. So clearly he wants to win. Clearly he doesn't care about money. Clearly that's at this point, as you said, Gabe, to the Cardinals' advantage because it is at this point a team-friendly deal with the way that the Rockies are kicking in $21 million this year. By the way, I wanted to mention that a little change. And Blake, I'm going to let you weigh in here on this in a second, but little change from something that I've talked about in the past. Got together with Jeff Jones and we tried to clarify this because there's a lot of confusion about what Arenado's actual deal is and how the Rockies payments kind of shake out. I still don't know that this is actually true, but I'm going to go with this. And Jeff decided he's going to go with this too. Next year or this coming year, the Rockies at one site says that they'll pay 16 million and then 5 million to the Cardinals for the next 3 years. But the original AP report does say that it is 16 plus 5. So that instead of those 3 years being the next 3, one of those $5 million payments happens this year. And so they're actually going to get $21 million from the Rockies to cover Nolan Arenado's $35 million salary this year. Plus, Arenado is deferring $6 million and receiving $2 million from a previous deferment. It's super crazy, but the end result is that they're basically paying Nolan Arenado. Let's see, 35 minus 21 is math I can't do. Like nothing. They're basically paying him nothing to be their Platinum Glove winning MVP caliber third baseman. It's a little bit more than nothing, but it's not very much money.
Yeah,
that's going to be great. I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for the Cardinals. I mean, especially down the road, that'll be nice that salary didn't get bumped up, that we won't be paying somebody who will be like, how old is he at the end of his contract? Like 37?
Yeah, he's not even going to be that old. The 15 at the end, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I pushed him to 37, 38, but he's not as old as I originally thought when that contract ended. I thought it was
it would be nice that didn't get bumped up like $5-10 million, and that could be borderline overpaying an older player, which is just what happens when you give out a big contract to a star player. But I think that opens up some possibilities for the Cardinals down the road, which is going to be really nice.
Yeah. So Arenado's there on the left side. Goldschmidt's locked up for another year or 2 on the right side of the infield. Is it 2 years or 1 more year?
I think it's 2.
I think it's 2. I don't think do we expect Arenado and Goldschmidt to be MVP caliber candidates for the next 2 years? We don't really expect that, do we?
No.
No, yeah, probably not.
Arenado, maybe, actually. Goldschmidt, what is he going to be, like 34, 35 at this point?
I think he was 35 this year. I can look real fast. That one I can do without messing up the radio. So he played this year at age. He's 35 in 1 month right now.
Okay.
So next year will be his 35 season.
So yeah, that would be slightly surprising because I feel like that was the age Carpenter fell off a cliff. I'm not saying Goldschmidt's going to fall off a cliff, but that's just the older you get, the less likely you're going to start to keep playing at that level.
Yeah, I would be surprised to see a 35-year-old first baseman be in the MVP chase. I was surprised to see him at 34 be in the MVP chase this year. So I really don't think it's going to happen again, but he should still be a really good player. That's all the Cardinals need to be.
Right. Even if he fell back, because his defense is slipping a little bit. This was his worst defensive season of the year, even though he was up for a Gold Glove. Even if he slipped back to, let's say 2021 level, just a 137 WRC plus, that would be a 40-point drop in WRC plus. He was still worth 5 WAR. So yeah, 3 to 6 WAR next season at age 35 would be awfully nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard to expect the amount of production that the Cardinals got from Arenado or Goldschmidt any year. Like that's, it's an MVP quality year. So it's hard to expect something like that. But I think for the next few years, we could see a 3 to 5 win season from either of them, at least the next 2. I wouldn't be surprised to see it. I guess there's a big difference between 3 wins and 5 wins, but
there kind of is, isn't there? I mean,
yeah, I'm hedging my bets there by putting that big of a gap.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I do the same thing. I have a 3 to 5 WAR range. I raise that in half my articles just because anyone can fit in that range. But it is kind of big in the sense that there's a lot of 3 WAR players out there, and there's not a very many 5 WAR players out there. So it's kind of not, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but it's similar kind of to what you and I to some extent have been talking about the last couple of days at Viva with Trey Turner versus Tommy Edman and the whole shortstop situation. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it that someone like Trey Turner would be an upgrade over Tommy Edman at shortstop, but is it enough to justify the huge increase in salary? Well, at some point, 1 win, 2 wins, actually does make a difference. But with Goldschmidt, I think what he provides and the way that his bat is right now, a steady decline seems awfully likely to me, as opposed to someone like Carpenter, where you are already kind of seeing the cracks in his armor. The contact rate was slipping even when he was still pretty productive in 2018. And the walk rate was always there, but you kind of knew that if he lost his power, he was going to be pretty one-dimensional. And then that happened, obviously. Goldschmidt would have to lose an awful lot of stuff for him to slip down to a 2 or 3 WAR player.
But by the way, I will say if he drops down to the 137, I think that's about as far of a drop as Carpenter took. So he's operated just a way higher place than Carpenter was when he. So that helps a lot, I think.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's true. It's a good point. So one thing I wanted to talk about before we're going to get to Wainwright here in a second, but with Arenado on the left side, Goldschmidt on the right, and then whether we believe he's an actual 5 WAR shortstop or not, you've got Tommy Edman there at short. It could change. I don't think very many of us think they're actually going to sign Trey Turner or Correa or something like that, but it's possible. We could just say it's possible for now. And then probably I would say Brendan Donovan would be the front runner with Nolan Gorman at second base right now. Kind of seems like they've raised the floor on their infield, the non-catcher part of their infield. Would you guys agree with that? Seems like they've got an above average floor at every position now with the potential for 2 to 3 WAR, across the board or more.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't remember what Donovan's pace was this year, but it had to have been close to 4 WAR. I think Edman cleared 5 this year. So I mean
Yeah.
that's 3 of the infielders with 5+ WAR and Donovan on pace for 4. Like even if that slips, that should be comfortably everybody over 3. With a full season of plate appearances, that's quite the floor.
Yeah, Donovan's pace for the season in a 600 plate appearance season is 3.5 WAR.
Okay.
So, but he also might have had a career year in his rookie season. I'm not really sure what else he's going to be able to improve on going forward, except maybe some defensive stuff instead of shifting around to the outfield.
Power.
If he sticks to second base for a full season, that might help him defensively, or at least boost his production a little bit defensively, as opposed to like the odd game in left or right field where I don't think he did that well.
Yeah, no, he was terrible in the outfield.
Yeah.
Horribly terrible. No offense, Gold Glove winning. Outfield
I was gonna say, I was almost second guessing myself. I'm like, I thought for sure he won a Gold Glove. Then I'm like, maybe I just dreamt that.
He did, yeah.
It was hilarious.
We can talk about that, but Brendan Donovan winning the Gold Glove over Tommy Edman is one of the biggest head scratchers I've ever seen. But
yeah, that's tough for Tommy. He's had one of the best defensive seasons in baseball this year. It feels like he did not come out with anything.
Yeah. I know that this wasn't the case, but it just made so much sense that they make the utility position award. You know, it's like, well, they're going to give that to Edman. That's why they're doing this. It's so obvious, and then they don't. Then they don't give him any.
I guess it's because Donovan provided more utility by playing the outfield. But then I feel like you're giving Varsho then he could play catcher in center field, which is insane.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So there's the infield. You got to like the infield, and there might be improvements to it too. They're going to need a backup shortstop or doing something with DeYoung. We haven't talked about DeYoung. I don't really care to talk about DeYoung today, to be honest. So there's that too. We'll hit the outfield another session. So let's talk about the rotation. Adam Wainwright is back. And Gabe wants to yell at anyone who doesn't like that. So I'll let you go first, Gabe. Tell me how you really feel about Adam Wainwright being back.
Oh, I love it. Are you referring to my tweet where I said, I kind of hate you if you're mad at this news?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm referencing.
Well, here's the thing. I'm of the firm belief, and I don't think the Cardinals are going to operate this way, but that Wainwright doesn't prevent and signing another starter to me, because you need 6 starters. I think you need 6 starters, and I'm not counting Hudson, by the way. So maybe that's where the disconnect is. But you could still sign Quintana or Rodon or whoever, and then go into the season with 5 guys and whoever you sign. Somebody's probably going to drop before the season starts. It seems like it always happens. And if they don't, they'll probably drop in April or May. That's just the way these things go. They work themselves out. So I feel like that's why people who aren't happy with the signing because it prevents that kind of signing. But I don't think it should. And also, I want to see him get 211 wins. I'm not even a win guy, but I want to see him get 211 wins. It's the same thing with breaking the record with Molina. I want to see him reach some milestones. So I'm excited. Hopefully he can win 20 games or whatever. I know that's going to be almost impossible, but you never know.
We said the same thing with Pools in 700.
That's true.
You never know.
I mean, Wainwright's probably not a Hall of Famer, but I feel like the 200 wins, even though it's not the best stat, I feel like that 200 win benchmark is something that he needed to have to even be considered, even be in the area code of the Hall of Fame. But I do think that, like Gabe said, I think that by signing him, the Cardinals I'd be shocked if they sign any starting pitching beyond Wainwright, at least in any impact arms, because that's just not how they typically operate. I don't think they're going to sign anybody of importance now that they have Wainwright back, because they have 5 or 6 guys they can slot in, whether we agree that they're quality or not.
Yeah, you might be right. I hope you're wrong, but you might be. I know the Cardinals, at least from a lot of the stuff I've been reading from the beat writers, it sounds like they're ready to spend this year a little bit. So it just depends on what they're going to spend on. And it feels like bringing Wainwright back doesn't really improve the rotation. It's just keeping the band together. And last year it was a middle of the pack rotation. So just bringing it back doesn't really bump that into like a top 3rd rotation. And
Yeah.
the lineup and the defense were kind of the strengths last year, although some of the defense is gone now with Sosa and Bader gone, but it still feels like pitching's the weak point.
I mean, you put Wainwright is a spot, Michaelis is a spot. If Flaherty's healthy, I'd have to assume they're going to want to get Flaherty in there if he's healthy. Montgomery's still under contract, correct? So he's a spot.
Yeah.
There's 4. And the one that's interesting to me is Steven Matz. For what they're paying him, if he's healthy, I would be very surprised if they were like, okay, we're fine using Steven Matz out of the bullpen for what we're paying him. So if he's healthy, I'm assuming they're also going to try to run him as a starter, but since he really hasn't been able to do that healthy. So there's 5.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The last few off seasons, the Cardinals have had budget problems and they've barely been able to spend money on anything. I'm not saying they're going to get a starter. I don't know, because I don't know if they're prioritizing catcher, an outfielder, maybe a shortstop. But to me, the way they've acted the past few offseason doesn't really tell us much because they haven't really had anything to work with budget wise. We traded for Arenado without like spending any money or what, and I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they do sign a starter just because I feel like they're finally at a place where they can spend money. So I don't know if we can use the last few off seasons to tell us. And before that, they had a lot more depth starting wise as prospects, I thought. But maybe that's just faulty memory.
I was looking at it less of what have they previously done and more of like those situations for those 5 individuals. And can I see individually for those 5, any of those 5 guys, if they're healthy, not being in the rotation? Matz is the one that's the most curious to me because I don't know if anybody really loves what they've seen from him so far, but he hasn't really been healthy to show what he could do.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the thing, though, is I mean, Matz wasn't super healthy last year. Flaherty wasn't really healthy last year. Wainwright's going to be old. Miles Michaelis just threw 200 innings and is going to be 34 next year.
Yeah,
Like
he's
you
a
think
time
they're going
bomb,
to
in my
surprise the
opinion.
innings.
Yeah. Okay. So I
Going to
don't
be
know
old.
if you. Yeah.
He's
don't know
been
if
a
you
little bit
saw it.
old for a while.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
I don't
I
know if
love
you
him
saw
for
it, Gabe, but I wrote an article about whether the Cardinals should or should not bring Wainwright back if he doesn't retire. And what I said in that article is basically the same thing you've been kind of pointing out is that there's no reason whatsoever to doubt that Wainwright could be productive. He has a health risk just because of his age, but I mean, even last year with his downturn at the end of the season, 2.8 FWAR, I mean, it's really hard to complain about that, about what would now be your 4th or 5th starter and a team legend. Like, I mean, that's the guy you want around, no doubt about it. But with the ability to count to 5, and I realize it's not that simple, but with that ability, but then also knowing that already in-house under contract, and some of these are a little bit ridiculous, but bear with me here for a second. You've got Dakota Hudson as 6. Well, as a 6, Dakota Hudson fits pretty well. Then you've got Andre Palante, who I think deserves a chance to show what he can do in a major league rotation. I don't know if I would want him in a championship level rotation, but I think based on what we saw last year, he deserves a chance to start somewhere. So that's 7. And then you've got, and you're going to hate this, you guys are going to hate me even saying this, and you've got Drew Verhagen, who is still, I know, everyone that's listening, they are shaking their heads and thumbs are going down.
well, we can put Zach Thompson ahead of Verhagen.
Yeah, I'm counting by veteran status is all I'm doing. So you've got Verhagen even under contract, right? Who kind of fits in that we bring you in to be the swing starter. So that's 8. Okay, that's 8. I'm not saying that we ever want to see him really ever again. But I'm still bullish on him. I still think there's good ability in that arm, maybe not in the rotation, but it
Sounds like they're set.
Yeah, right. So that's 8. And then we're not even to Thompson, who probably has proven he needs a chance to start. That's 9. And then you've got their best pitching prospect in AAA. Well, best because I think Thompson surpassed him, but Liberatore had better stuff coming in. That's 10. And I'm not even arguing with you, Gabe. All I'm saying is that they're going in with 10 plus a couple more that they could run with. And I have not yet heard a single beat writer or reporter indicate that they have any desire in looking at another starter.
That's fair.
Yeah.
but I'll say a couple things. I don't think you can count Verhagen. I think he's absolutely going to the bullpen. I
Oh
don't think.
yeah,
I don't think
definitely.
you can count Thompson. I don't think you can count Thompson. I think he's absolutely going to the bullpen too, honestly. And I don't think you can count Lipitor because you want him in AAA most of the year. I think until he takes a step forward. But anyway, how about look at it like this? If they didn't sign Wainwright, they'd probably roll with Hudson as a fifth starter, and then to push the depth back. I don't
It's
know.
possible. I think the
He had
only
like 30
chance
starts last
I
year.
guess my point really was that the only chance you were going to see someone like Rodon or a true impact level ace was if Wainwright didn't return. And as it is now, with him returning, you might see, like, I would love to see them bring Quintana back. Love it. I don't think it's likely, but you might see more of that kind of move, which is a fine move. I mean, I'm in favor of all these things. Like, I'm not upset that Wainwright's coming back. Why would I be? But if you're going to improve the rotation, you either need six. So you've got six perfectly solid to good pitchers, or you got to add to the top somewhere, because like you're kind of saying, the rest of them are either bullpen pieces. You need them in the bullpen, or you don't want them out there. Like honestly, like Libertor, like Hudson, like Verhagen. Worst case scenario. We don't want another Aaron Brooks this season if we're going to contend for a championship in the National League.
I mean, I don't know. That's it. If I'm the Cardinals, though, I'm looking at where I can spend the money. They obviously need a catcher.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, we see a lot of just people in general talking about getting the Trey Turner or Carlos Correa. But if Turner is just going to bump Edmund to second, and that's going to bump Donovan to the bench, it feels like you could get more wins by bumping a 5 starter into like a swingman 6 kind of bullpen role by bringing in like a Carlos Rodon or something like that. And it feels like that's going to improve the team way more for the same price than it would be to sign an infielder.
I agree.
I'm hoping that's how they're looking at it, because I still think that should absolutely be the priority outside of obviously catcher.
But that comes back to what Connor was saying. It's like, who's
Yeah.
that going to be? They're going to bump Matz with this $40 million contract. I mean, it just, I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Our entire rotation is somebody's gonna get hurt. 2 people
I
are
wouldn't
gonna
think
get hurt.
about it bumping somebody. I mean, it's like they're all going to start, and somebody's going to get hit really early.
Or you could have a 6-man rotation.
Yeah.
Until
I mean,
somebody gets
I wouldn't be blown away if like Jason said, if they sign somebody like Quintana and you just roll in with 6 starters because he's not going to be that expensive. What I would be absolutely blown away with is if they went after somebody like Rodon, when you have 5, 6, 7 healthy guys. Like, I could see them maybe signing a serviceable 3rd or 4th starter to slap in there as the 6th, because you're assuming somebody's not going to be healthy in April. But I would be blown away if they went anything more than like a 3-4 kind of starter to throw in the mix.
The other possibility that I want to throw out, and I haven't solved this one yet, so it's just an idea, and it came, where did I get this idea from? If I think about who it came from, I'll give him credit. I keep wanting to say it was Derek Gould, but I don't think it was. Yeah, I think it was. I think it was on the radio. I saw reference to it on the radio. Now I can't think of who it was. Anyway, it doesn't matter. One of the things that they keep talking about, and I'm sure you guys are aware of this, is swing and miss stuff from their starters and in the bullpen. And I have where I haven't seen Mozeliak talking about doing their rotation. We have seen him talking about adding swing and miss stuff to their bullpen. And it makes me wonder if there isn't a guy out there kind of like Thompson last year, but they didn't really use him this way. But I can't think of anyone on the Cardinals. Hicks, that would be the guy to kind of point to. Last year, Hicks kind of went back and forth between the rotation and the bullpen. You could use him theoretically in a high leverage bullpen role or a short outing starter role. And part of me wonders if there isn't a guy out there that could do that, but do it better than Jordan Hicks did, if that makes sense. Like, Hicks was a little bit miscast as a starter and had control problems there, and really never took him away. He just wasn't ready for that role. He would be better in that role probably this year than he was last year. But I'd prefer just to have Hicks in the bullpen and forget about it forever, and have someone in that role that could literally, give you 4 or 5 innings if needed, or throw the 7th inning, in a playoff game if needed. Does that make sense? Am I crazy for thinking that might be a possibility?
are you talking about getting a bullpen arm? Because
But I mean, like a legitimate swing arm, a good swing arm, like someone that you could, if they had to start for 10 games, not expecting them to go 6 or 7 innings, but expecting them 4 or 5 innings, someone that you would feel real comfortable with them doing that. I'm not sure that such an arm exists.
Unless you sign another starter and move one of the current starters to that role, I don't think that person would exist.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying.
Yeah. You see that kind of on other teams a little bit, but it's almost always a developed arm, like a Thompson, or a Palante, where they don't really have space for them, so they're kind of working them in and out and back and forth. But I just didn't know if there was a guy like that out there that we could sign and bring in. You could trade for someone like that, then they don't have a choice. But that's another conversation. So
Sign someone like that because you can always kind of create it. Because I think those types of pitchers appear every year. Like that role isn't one that you seek out, but it just sort of happens every time organically.
yeah, right. And that could be what they do with Thompson. I mean, what if Thompson wasn't just a 1 inning reliever, but started 12 games and got 110 innings between the bullpen and the rotation or something? I would be okay with that.
I could see that for him.
Yeah. But yeah, hey, Wainwright's returning, and really, I don't think any of us are disappointed or mad about it. I think that we're glad he's back, and I think we also all kind of wish the rotation was a little bit better. And I think both of those things can be true at the same time. All right, any final thoughts on Wainwright? Okay, coaching changes then. You got a favorite you want to talk about first? I thought we might kind of work our way up to the one that we're probably going to talk about most, which I would guess would be Jeff Albert and the whole season and the whole thing with him. So do you guys want to start with Albert, or do you guys want to end with Albert?
I'm just gonna say that I'm not really I'm not on Twitter that much, and so I don't really know what the Jeff Albert drama is. So maybe if we start with that one, you guys can clue me in on what's going on with that.
So
I know people don't like him, people do, people blame him, people think he's good. I don't really know.
So that means you have a healthy social media experience.
Yeah, I get on there like once a week and look for tweets to use in articles, and then it's disappears for another week.
That's unbelievable self-control.
It really is. I can't help myself. I don't know why. But okay, so let's do that. Let's jump in with Jeff Albert then.
Give me the lore.
Okay, so who wants to tackle this? The Jeff Albert lore. Anyone?
I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, basically, at least that's what was it Mozeliak that said this in the press conference?
That's where I first heard it. It was from Mozeliak at that.
Apparently, part of the motivation for him leaving was criticism on social media, and feeling underappreciated after he gave the team or helped the team to a top 5 offense. So I don't know. It feels like a weird explanation for somebody to leave their job. But also he did get a ton of criticism for being at least what on the outside seemed like a really good hitting coach.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of the point where Albert Pujols would strike out and people were like, "Oh, Jeff Albert, so terrible." I mean, it was just, it was a bit ridiculous.
I mean, it was a top 5 offense after all, so it's tough to complain.
So that's why he isn't returning though, is because fans were mean to him.
Is Jeff Albert a name searcher?
Yeah, maybe he just needs to stay off Twitter.
He's gotta
get your money and
Heather,
don't
he
look.
needs to do what you do.
Yeah, I'll teach you, Jeff. If you come back, you delete the app off your phone.
I think everybody here at VEB was a fan. So he must, when he was name searching, must have not come across our article.
I say I was nothing but nice to him. I don't understand.
I think it was the local Post-Dispatch. It didn't seem like they were that big of fans. And I don't know. I feel like hitting coach for the Cardinals for some reason has just become this thing where everybody criticizes them at the first sign that the Cardinals stop hitting. Like this was true when I think McGuire was the hitting coach, and when who predated Mabry. Oh, Mabry. Oh
It
my
was
God.
Mabry. That might have been a little bit true. I don't know
Mabry
if
was a
John
huge-
Mabry is your hitting coach or not, but
I feel like Mabry was more of a punching bag than well, actually, I don't know about that because with Albert comes a bunch of criticism of advanced stats.
Yeah,
Like advanced stats, let's criticize Albert.
it's all thrown in together.
Yeah, it's all thrown together, and I don't know. It's so ridiculous. I don't know why the hitting coach became this thing where everybody focuses on him no matter what's going on. Just after they get shut out, it's like let's criticize the hitting coach, and I don't understand it. It's always been the case though, like always. So this is not a good role if you're gonna not like it and criticize. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Good luck to the next guy.
Yeah.
I always wondered how much. I mean, I'm sure a hitting coach does offer a lot. But I wonder how much of a difference a good one versus a bad one really makes because don't you have to be a pretty good hitter to be a professional baseball player in the first place? So, like, how much was Jeff Albert like coaching Albert Pujols to get? I don't know. I've always wondered that. Like, what do they really do?
Why were we not singing Jeff Albert's praises during Albert Pujols' second half surge?
Right.
Well, and I
Yeah,
did. I
people are
wrote a
asking.
whole article about where I literally, and no one paid any, I mean, the site did, but no one out there paid any attention to this, where I could go pitch by pitch and show you what they had changed and what it was clearly. I talked about it being an inside joke, basically between Albert and Albert, because every time he would hit a home run, he'd come back and him and Jeff Albert would share a laugh and look at the video and point at the analytics right there, guys. It's right there. They're pointing at it. They're looking at it. Right. And it's like they shared this inside joke on how, how is it that we could get Albert Pujols prepared to hit left-handers and drive balls out of the park? And they did it successfully in a truly amazing way. And I personally, I have no problem giving Albert Pujols all the credit in the world for that. Absolutely. He was the one swinging the bat. But to think that Jeff Albert didn't have anything to do with that when, clearly something changed about them and clearly they found something and clearly they had singular goals that they achieved. I mean, that's what you want a coaching staff to do, isn't it? It just seems like the perfect way to illustrate the impact of a coach and a player and a whole organization philosophy coming together to achieve a certain goal together.
Also, I'll say his impact might be more felt in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
Right.
I know he has a hand in like, or he had a hand, I guess, in everything that's going down, and all our hitting prospects seem to be doing very well. And I don't know if that's just a coincidence or not. You can never tell, but I mean, it seems. I mean, he should probably get a little bit of credit for that too.
Yeah.
It seems like
And I think that might be part of it too, because, and I keep seeing this, and I think it's because people, well, I think for one, I don't think people look at stat sheets at all. First of all, like not even back of baseball card stuff, which we used to know about. People don't even do that. But then people just simply aren't aware or don't care about some of the more not so advanced, but advanced metrics. And I think there's a lot of people out there that really do believe that Nolan Gorman and Juan Yepez had really bad offensive seasons. And I don't know what to say. I don't got anything for you, if you say that, because unless you're just looking at Ks or just looking at health, maybe. But I don't see how you could look at either Gorman or Yepez's season at their age and their experience level and say they were bad. They weren't great, but they were at worst good.
Yeah, I mean, they were both above average if you want to look at the like WRC plus and things. And that's where I don't know, is that an issue with just not looking at stats, or is that an issue with just having unreasonable expectations for prospects? Because you'll hear that for years Nolan Gorman is hyped up as the top hitting prospect in the system. So then he comes up and he's only slightly above average as like a 22-year-old. I guess people want him to be what Julio Rodriguez was this year with the Mariners. And that's not what every prospect is going to be when they come up. A guy who's an above average hitter as a 22-year-old, I think, is that's solid. That's a solid year. It's hard to be upset about that.
Yeah.
And recency bias because he's kind of sucked at the end. That's
true too.
That too. Yeah, that too. And all of that kind of goes in, Heather, going back to your original question, all of that fits into this whole Jeff Albert stuff. It's like when you pick and choose your narratives and what you look at, what you agree with, what you care about, what you ignore, all of that can just go back to, well, it's all Jeff Albert's fault. And we saw a lot of that on the internet, and apparently Jeff Albert did too. So
It seems like it's one of those roles, hitting coach, where you don't get a lot of credit when things are going well, and you get a lot of blame when they're not going well. For whatever reason, although I don't know where that credit or blame comes from. As long as your employer seems like you, I feel like that would be enough, but apparently not. I don't know. I don't want to start this narrative that he's sensitive or whatever, because that's what it sounds like. But I don't get it. I don't get if that's the reason.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't offer him enough money and they're just saying that it's because he's mad about what the fans said. That would be something I would do. I'd be like, well, it's actually you guys. It can't possibly be anything I did. It's the fans.
So here's the question I got for you guys, because we're all kind of fans of Jeff Albert. I'm not sure about you, Connor, but I'm going to presume you are because you're a smart guy. But I mean, Jeff Albert's going to go on to get hired somewhere, and I mean, like it seems like he's primed to really position himself well, because the rest of the baseball world knows, well, one, what he did with this offense this year and what he's done with the minor league system. He's going to come out of this just fine, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He should definitely be. I expect him to be a major league hitting coach again next year. Probably not the kind of major league hitting coach who gets swept up by, like, I don't know, the Pirates or something. Like, if there's a decent team looking for a hitting coach, you'd think Jeff Albert's got to be at the top of the list.
My only question is, does he want to be a hitting coach? Because he clearly doesn't like the spotlight. So I maybe he can do something else, like I don't even know what the next path forward is, because I feel like hitting coaches, the major league team is top tier, but there's something else he could do that doesn't involve him getting criticized online or something. And I don't know what that is, but he can do whatever he wants. I think just a matter of what he wants to do.
I was wondering if there isn't some kind of like front office level hitting coordinator, hitting philosophy director position that he could basically be a step up from hitting coach, and not, I mean, you'd still be in the dugout maybe, or you'd still be involved in the day to day, but didn't seem like the day to day in and out, like strategic coaching was his thing either. It was more about mechanics and, approach. And it seems like something like a front office level position would, one, pay him more probably, and two, keep him off the road and out of the spotlight, and then give him more control. It seems like that's the kind of thing that a smart organization would do with a player like that. I kind of thought maybe that's what they should have done with him anyway, is continue to promote below him, and then sort of elevate him up one notch, if such a notch existed, to really overseeing everything, instead of necessarily being focused on the day-to-day, hitting dynamics at the major league level.
Yeah, all those positions are interesting, because I know the Cardinals have Russ Steinhorn, who's their kind of like minor league hitting coordinator. And that's kind of a role where I could see like Jeff Albert doing the kind of thing where he's not really involved in the day-to-day at a certain level, but more so presiding over the overall philosophy and strategy of things. But I think like Russ Steinhorn would have been considered below Jeff Albert.
Yeah, he would have been.
So I don't know what kind of a role Jeff Albert could have by doing that would be considered a promotion.
Yeah. What I would want if I was him is to where I couldn't get fired by the manager. Not that he wasn't in St. Louis. We saw that with Schilt. He was protected and Schilt was gone. We don't know that was related to Albert, although I think it's fairly decent speculation that was the case. But to where the general manager is the one who's his direct overseer would, I think, be the kind of role he'd want to be in.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of part of my frustration with him leaving too. When you look at it, is like he was protected, if we want to say that, over Schilt. So it seems like he was held in very high regard in the Cardinals organization. So I am like slightly frustrated that it's fan input that would have driven him away when he was so clearly highly regarded by the people that actually matter. Like I get wanting the recognition and wanting to be like in the good graces of people, but it felt like he was an organizational favorite, so it would have been nice to see him stay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's some sort of deep conspiracy where they say he's leaving, but then they hire a new hitting coach and his name is like Schmef Schmalbert. And he has like a mustache and glasses, and it's
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
not Jeff Albert. It's someone different.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a Miles Mikolas mustache and then the mullet.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So he looks just
Like-
like Gabe with just a little bit more of a mullet.
Right. And it's definitely not Jeff Albert, guys. I don't know what you're talking about. It's this new guy.
Well, we'll see. Do we think? I mean, we don't know. I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know anything about hitting coaches. That is one level above my interest and pay grade here at Viva Birdos. So, but do we think that we're going to be able to maintain at least what Jeff Albert started, or are we looking at trouble next year?
I'm kind of nervous about that. If your hitting coach leaves and then you want to hire another hitting coach, like all the good ones are gonna be like, well, that guy left because he didn't like it. So why would I want to be there? That's what I would think. So that's a little concerning.
I don't think we'll see an impact this coming year because like it's going to be basically the same personnel. Maybe if we see an impact at all in the negative direction, I think it'll be like in a few years when the new hitting prospects arrive, maybe, and some guys have departed, and we'll know a little bit more maybe of what day to day Jeff Albert did. Like as far as we probably won't know because the hitters they kind of go all over the place sometimes, but
Yeah.
if there's an impact, I don't think it'll be felt this coming year. I think it'll be felt a few years down the road when new personnel come into play.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on what route the Cardinals want to take because Jeff Albert, it feels like kind of had a whole system throughout the minor leagues going. So if the Cardinals want to promote internally from a guy that was brought in under him with a similar kind of philosophy, it feels like they could just kind of maintain the path that they were already on. But if they bring in somebody from outside, they might have more switching around of things, and that might create a larger impact. So it'll just kind of depend on, I guess, what route they're going to want to take with this next hire.
Turner Ward was the assistant hitting coach right below Albert, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's kind of the name that I've seen a bunch. And then another interesting one that would kind of be crazy. I saw that Matt Holliday was on MLB Network and he said that Mozeliak did talk to him about being involved in the organization in some way, shape, or form. But he said, we haven't talked about specific roles or jobs yet. But Matt Holliday basically said he would like to be part of the organization, but they haven't named specific, roles, jobs, things like that.
Mm.
Seems unlikely, but it looks like maybe he'll come back in some capacity.
And I personally, no offense to Matt Holliday at all, we'll talk about him with bench coach here in a second, but I personally don't think that this Jeff Albert like replacement role is where you want someone like a Matt Holliday. I'd love to have Matt Holliday coaching or with the organization or working with the front office, but what we've seen now is that you need someone that has real knowledge. Not to say that Holliday doesn't, but I mean, Jeff Albert had a master's degree in this stuff. Real knowledge of the analytics and the technology and how to use it and how to innovate and how to develop those kinds of things. And maybe I'm not giving someone like Matt Holliday enough credit, but I wouldn't think that Matt Holliday was a state-of-the-art, cutting-edge innovator in the digital hitting electronics field. I'm sure he knows hitting really well, and I'm sure he'd be a huge asset to the organization. But you need someone in that role now, because that's what baseball hitting is based off, whether you like it or not. That's what it is. And so they got to fill that. Now, if they supplement that with a bunch of guys like Ryan Ludwig or Matt Holliday that know hitting, all the better, because you still need guys that know what it's like to be out there, in addition to computers telling you what you're doing. So I think you need a combination of both.
Yeah, and that makes me think if like a guy like Russ Steinhorn could take the job and just kind of be in a similar role because he was kind of in that overseer minor league coordinator role under Albert. So it feels like he could just kind of step into that role and just maintain that role as an overseer and just add major league duties on top of that.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, let's go ahead then. Let's jump on over to what Connor was getting at, and let's talk about Skip. Skip is now the skipper. So Skip is off to the Marlins, and the Cardinals are in need of a new bench coach. And it seems to me like the Cardinals have been treating the bench coach as the future manager role. And so it does matter who we fill this with. We might not have paid too much attention back in the Joe Patini days. Yeah, that's a name I just came up with right there. Yeah, I think that's right too. Back in with Tony La Russa, but nowadays the bench coach is really important. And yeah, Matt Holliday was asked about it, and we've also seen maybe a couple other former Cardinals mentioned. But first of all, what do you guys think about Skip managing the Marlins? Good decision, bad decision? Irrelevant to you decision?
Good decision, irrelevant to me, but good decision.
For
Yeah.
Skip decision.
Yeah.
Happy for him. I don't know his managerial qualifications, besides he seems like a stand-up fella, you know. But the Marlins, they're not very good, right? So I don't know. Does it, maybe that's what they want, is a nice motivational chap.
The Marlins have oodles and oodles and oodles of young pitching that's going to be fantastic in the next 5-6 years. So I think that he's honestly getting dropped in the right spot at the right time.
Yeah, I agree. And also, like, when you're a first-time manager, you're not gonna break in with a playoff team. Like, you can't really
Right.
turn it down. You kind of, I feel like, unless it's just an awful role with a team that's truly going nowhere, like, you just kind of take it, and you got to get that experience under your belt. I feel like it would have been tough for Skip to turn that down and then hope that he could get another job that comes along in a few years, because that's just doesn't always work out like that.
Well, I think it's better if you're newer to have a not so great team, because it gives you a little bit of leeway, you know, because they're not expecting, like, I wouldn't want to manage the Cardinals my first time out. That would be a tough ask, because the fans are obviously expecting a lot. It drove away their hitting coach. So it seems like a tough gig. So maybe Miami would be a good spot.
And I'll say that there's sometimes when like first year managers are hired, it's clear they're like lame duck, like where they're clearly just there while they're rebuilding. And the Marlins are always kind of rebuilding, but I don't think that's a situation here. So I could see him have the job for 4, 5, 6 years. Depends on how lucky he gets with who they decide to trade, because they might decide to trade Alcantara at some point because he's expensive or something. But yeah, I forgot who there was a Reds guy hired, whoever was before David Bell. It was clear he wasn't going to last when the team got good. And I don't think he's entering that situation. That's really all you can ask for as a first-time manager, I think. So good decision on his part.
Yeah. So Skip's out. Good for him. I think we're all happy for him. Who do we want as a bench coach? I mean, what's going to happen here?
It's always tough to say. I mean, again, like, I still think there are a lot of good internal candidates. I mean, we saw Stubby Clapp I know he's had like multiple interviews with other teams to be a manager. So it seems like he's at least well regarded in the general baseball world. I know like AAA manager Ben Johnson has been a guy who's been considered to be a pretty good candidate as well. And Jose Lajer, the AA manager, I know he's managing in the Dominican Republic right now. So he's actually getting some of that experience under his belt. So maybe he's a guy they'll consider too.
I tweeted about him, and I couldn't tell. This sounds bad. I couldn't tell whether it was his mom or his wife liked my tweet. I was like, yeah.
I've had that too.
More name searchers.
Yeah, true.
I kind of like that.
Maybe I should be searching my name. I don't know that I'd find anything good, but
yeah, I kind of like that role going to an internal candidate. I feel like that is because you kind of know what they're about, and they've been in the system already, and so if you do see it as, you know, the the manager, like the succession line of succession for manager type role, I feel like you want to like keep people in there that you have trained for the spot from the beginning. So I kind of like that idea.
To the extent that the bench coach is a stepping stone to the manager, I'm not sure it's relevant for us because that means they're going to be hired by another team, probably, or at least unless,
Yeah.
I don't know what would go wrong with Marmol in the near future to get fired, but hopefully the next bench coach is not necessarily the manager of the Cardinals, unless he's like got a long tenure. So for whoever accepts the role, it's a big deal. I don't know if I care that much personally, just because I don't know what they do. I don't know anything about the role. So it's hard for me to like speculate on who's going to get hired just because we're behind the scene. Like I'm not behind the scenes, so I don't know what the importance or anything is. Just keep a
Right.
good clubhouse, just have a guy who's professional. I don't know.
I think the bench coach, I think a lot of it is he's there to help the manager make those in-game decisions as far as everything from the running game to pitching changes and just managing the game. He's just there as that second voice. I'm sure they've got other responsibilities too. Not trying to just say that they're just like a glorified, yes man. But I think you want someone in there that can and this might have been the case with Skip. I'm assuming that is, considering he got hired by the Marlins, who was aware of all the analytics, understood the situation, and helped Marmol access that information on the fly. That seems like a little bit more than I would have expected out of Skip, but after being with the Padres and now going to the Marlins, it wouldn't surprise me if he was a little bit more analytically astute than we might have assumed, just from the era that he played in. But someone that could do that it would be what I was looking for. And so the Memphis guy, the AA guy who is Hispanic, native Spanish speaker, I think would be nice too. Part of me thinks that an outside voice would be good, just because you get we promote a lot from the inside, and that's a good thing. People stay with the organization for a long time because they know they're going to have a chance for advancement, and that's valuable. But if we end up bringing a hitting coach from inside and then maybe a pitching coach from inside and then a bench coach from inside, that's a lot of the same voices. And I think with Albert, we might have seen the benefit of having an outside voice come in and change things around. So I don't know if the bench coach is the spot where that is, but I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Yeah, and just another interesting thing, as I was thinking back, I was just looking this up too. I think like almost every time since the start of this century, the Cardinals have promoted internally to get the bench coach. I mean, well, not counting Skip, obviously, but I mean, he was a player at least.
Yeah, I almost count him as an internal one, even though he wasn't.
Yeah, Ollie Marmol came from inside. Mike Schilt came from inside. I think David Bell was the assistant hitting coach before he became the bench coach.
Yeah.
Mike Aldrete before him came from inside. Joe Patini came from inside. And then before him was Mark DeJohn in 2000, and he came from inside the system as well. So it feels like they have a pretty strong history of promoting. So it's kind of what I'm expecting for this one too.
Yeah. Johnson just seems like, it just not a shoe-in, but it just seems so likely, unless they want the younger Hispanic voice, which they already had that with Marmol. So, that's why I could see them going with AA. The AA, is it, I don't know Spanish, so is it Leher or Leger?
It's Leher, yeah.
Leher, yeah. He seems like Marmol 2.0, I'm sure they're very different people or whatever, but he's a young manager, Hispanic background, very analytically astute, well regarded by the organization in that regard. So, but Johnson's been, with the team for a while, with the organization for a while too. So I could see either or both. Well, not both. I guess they're not going to have two bench coaches.
Managers, it's a new market inefficiency.
I am all about expanding the major league coaching staff, though. So that's kind of what I was thinking in the back of my mind. Just bring everybody up, every voice you want, bring them into the coaching staff.
Like it.
All right, so that's more than I ever wanted to spend on a bench coach. So let's talk a little bit about Maddox. Maddox is gone. Cardinals are going to need a new pitching coach. Opportunity, disappointment. How are you guys feeling about that one?
I think opportunity.
Yeah.
Unlike hitting, I don't know that you could look at the pitch. And this is where it gets complicated because pitching coach doesn't get a lot of blame because Busch Stadium is a pitcher's park. So a lot of the pitching stats look really good, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they are really good. They also got a really good defense. So
You're
the
right.
pitching itself has, I don't know if I want to say it's underwhelming, but I do think you can't really point to anything in the numbers at least and be like, yeah, he's made a hugely positive impact on the squad. So I do think there's a lot less potential for like a drop off for getting a new guy. And I just think maybe a new voice will be nice. So I'm excited about this one a little bit. And I'm not even against Maddox. It's just a matter of I'm hoping that they go kind of the Jeff Albert way with pitching, get whatever the equivalent of that would be. And then our numbers might be like 1 or 2 in the league because they have the defense in the park. And if you're like a really good staff, then we're really going to see the effects.
I'm apathetic with Maddox. Because I'm trying to think of his specific philosophy. Isn't it kind of didn't he sort of switch a lot of the pitchers over to throwing four seamers more rather than sinkers?
He did that with Montgomery. I don't know if that was everybody, but he definitely
Yeah,
did that.
I don't think that I mean, this is just my opinion. Someone might have actual numbers. I don't think he had a set like Dave Duncan, like you're going to throw a 2-seamer. Like he wasn't that kind of guy. I think he was more just about mechanics. He's actually more astute with video than we might give him credit for. And I would assume with some of the analytics, some people just kind of get the idea that he's just claw on your shoulder, happy, good luck, go lucky old guy who's just here to help you have a good time on the pitching mound. He really wasn't. He's really a lot more than that. But I also don't know that he was on the cutting edge of pitching, analytics either. So he wasn't unfamiliar with it, but I don't know that he was at the peak of it.
I think there's so much that can be done with pitching, even more so than hitting, that it's to have someone that is willing, that is interested in pitching analytics and stuff in that role would be, even though Maddox was not by all means was not bad at his job or what he did. I think the difference in there could be huge. And I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, I think there is some opportunity too. I mean, I will say that like the Cardinals obviously think highly enough of him to be willing to keep him in the organization, even though he's not a pitching coach.
Yeah.
I think they at least recognize that he's good at his job. But I don't know if he had as much control as Jeff Albert did over the minor league system, but it does feel like the major league rotation's been about middle of the pack recently. And it feels like the minor league pitching development has lagged a little bit behind the minor league hitting development. So I would like to see somebody come in and who can provide a jolt to that and kind of at least bring it up to the same level of the hitting. Because I mean, we've seen guys like Matthew Liberatore come up and he's been a little sketchy. Like, I mean, you can go through the names and I don't know really how much correlation there is between the pitching coach and these guys having success, but I would like to see somebody who's going to be more of like a Jeff Albert on the pitching side.
Right. I don't disagree with you. I've seen that a lot. So I'm not disagreeing with you because I think it is partially true. At the same time, though, they put a huge emphasis on drafting bats, which they didn't have for a long time. So it really wasn't a surprise to me when their pitching lagged in terms of development. I mean, one of the reasons why they made the trade for Matthew Liberatore was that they didn't have those kinds of arms in their system. After missing the draft because of the hacking scandal and then COVID hit, and so you kind of had some years there where they had a lot of offensive draftees from the Carlson through Walker era kind of in there. And you didn't have the pitching to go along with it. And so they kind of had to make do with others. So it's not a surprise that they ran out of pitching prospects when they didn't draft any of them. And it's hard to make third, fourth, and fifth rounders into stars. They've never really done a lot of that. I mean, a lot of their Michael Wacha and Lance Lynn and or the guy we sent to Seattle, my brain stopped functioning.
Gonzalez.
Gonzalez, these are first round guys. These are first round talent. And a lot of guys, second, third, fourth round, even back when we were quote developing pitchers better than anyone else, they weren't making it as those kind of starters either. Or you had the international scene like Carlos Martinez. And anyway, long story short, it hasn't been good, but you would like to see a pitching coach that could take someone like Liberatore and turn them into what they should be.
Mhm.
They might not have as many of those arms, but you're not seeing that at the level that maybe you should. Even though you could point to Graceffo and you can point to Payante and a few other arms like that have had that velocity increase. So something on the coaching staff is working down there, but it's not maybe not as universal as we'd like. Whereas on the hitting staff, it kind of is, to be honest. So opportunity, Mike Maddox. And I'm going to presume that none of you really have any suggestions. Again, above our pay grade and our interest level. So
I'd just say I expect it to be outside of the organization.
Yeah.
Just because
It
yeah,
always
like
is.
like you were saying, you can't hire inside for bench pitching and hitting, and I don't think they will.
yeah.
And pitching will if one of them is outside, it's definitely gonna be pitching. I would bet a lot of
Yeah, I
money.
agree.
Yeah. All right. Final thoughts on the coaching staff before we move on. Okay, we're about to wrap up, and we've got about an hour in here. And that's kind of the end of our season review. That covers the beginning of the off season. And I think for our next couple pods, we'll probably jump around to different topics and maybe try to get a couple other people in and joining with us from the media and some former members and some things like that. I've got some ideas and it should be a lot of fun. But before we do that, I want to hear from you guys. Let's take off all restrictions. So don't worry about what their payroll number actually is. Don't worry about the number of starters they actually have. Don't worry too much about the players they already have in place. One big move, not a small move. I don't want to hear Christian Vasquez's name right now. Okay, one big move that you think the Cardinals should do. Don't worry so much about could do. What would you do right now if you were the Cardinals? And I'm going to start with Connor because he didn't participate in the last one and it's starting to look a little sleepy. So
I don't think they would do it, but I would like to see them get, if it was, you said money's not an option, like money doesn't matter, nothing matters, get Trey Turner to put atop of your lineup for the next 5-6 years. But with Mason Wynn coming up, I don't think they would do that, but I would like that.
That would make a lot of Cardinals fans happy. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility.
So. I mean, Mason Wynn could be really good. He could even end up being Trey Turner, but we could also get Trey Turner.
Yeah. Right. Okay, let's see here. Let's go Miles Nicholas there, Gabe. Who are you going to go with?
I'm going to go with Carlos Rodon, and that's the one that has the highest potential to look really stupid soon, I think. But that top of the rotation arm is very enticing for me. And there's not that many opportunities to get a guy like that. And yeah, I feel like we need that guy more than we need the other stuff. And I don't think Wilson Contreras counts as a good answer for this. So okay, so definitely.
I'm shaking my head. For those that can't watch, I'm shaking. Yeah, I don't think Wilson Contreras counts for this. I mean, you could, but he's not really that productive of a player, to be honest.
So Rodon's my answer for sure.
Yeah. All right. Good. Do you think that there's a chance that could happen, or do you think there's no chance?
Pretty much no chance, but yeah, pretty much no chance. I'll stick to that one.
Okay. All right. You're next, Blake. Who you got?
So I would say a frontline starter too. So I mean, like Gabe, my preferred option would probably be Rodon because he's 29, and I think everybody else, like DeGrom, is 34 and Verlander's older. I don't know if there would be a frontline starter available on the trade market, but I would also pursue that route too, because it feels like Nolan Gorman is a guy who could be a centerpiece and could bring back a good starter or something like that. But, just to add a little variety, if we're saying there's zero restrictions whatsoever, then just give me Aaron Judge.
Yeah. There's a chance, man. I think there's a chance. Very slim, because he's just not a perfect fit. But I think there's a chance Aaron Judge they're going to look at him as a Cardinal. Heather, what you got? Bring out the big guns, Heather.
It's too many options, and I'm not very good with this kind of off season thing. Maybe you build a time machine and you go back to like 1985 and you scoop up Ozzie Smith and then you bring him back with you and he's your shortstop for the next 10 years.
I bet you could do that for 35 million a year. I bet you could build a time machine if you want to invest.
Right, we have all these resources, right? There's no restrictions.
Yeah.
But no, I like what everyone said. I like the idea of getting a leadoff hitter, like someone that is a leadoff hitter for the entire the entire season. I can't think of anyone that could be besides Trey Turner, and I don't want to pick him again. I know there's got to be more, but I've looked, like, I thought about this question for so long and I have nothing.
Actually, Heather, if we're building the time machine, can we go back and just keep Sandy Alcantara on the team, and then we
Yeah,
can just...
someone
Yeah,
suggested
yeah,
that on the site. That's absolutely.
There we go.
Or we should have just not let the Marlins take Skip Schumacher unless they were going to trade us Alcantara for
Yeah.
either one.
Well, the thing about the time machine idea is that I mean, if you're going to go to the trouble of building it, you don't have to use it just once. You could use it 2, 3, 4 times. You know, get a little Stan Musial, a little Prime, Albert Pujols, a little Bob Gibson in there. You know, just get them all. Why not?
So originally I did want to go get Prime Albert Pujols, but I thought, well, you know, he just retired. It would be kind of confusing if there was another Albert Pujols. Let's not be ridiculous, but I did think of that, and I was like, where would he play? Would we put him in left field? I know there is
we don't really have a position for a bat like that. Sorry.
Yeah,
so.
we'll have to kick out Goldschmidt. I guess there's a DH.
Yeah.
Well, we would figure it out for Prime Albert Pujols.
If we got rookie Albert Pujols, we could play left field.
As I
Second
said, we
base.
put him in left field. There's that is.
Hey, Albert Pujols played second base in an All-Star game. So what, you know?
I was gonna say, I know there is a record of him playing second base. I think even third.
Oh yeah,
pitched
he
it
definitely
at
been third.
third,
Yeah,
yeah.
came up as a third baseman. Yeah, didn't stick there for very long, but yeah. All right. Speaking of ridiculous, I've got one for you guys. I'm just going to say 2 words, and then we're going to end the podcast. So I'm even going to give you your outro ahead of time. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. As always, you can get us on YouTube or on your favorite podcast provider, or you can just right there on the link in the article. Get what it wherever it is you want to watch, however you want to do. We don't make any money off of it, so you know, I don't care how you view us or what you do, but it's just all there for you. And we will be back with more podcasts, maybe every couple of weeks throughout the off season, and we'll have various combinations of everyone as we go through. But here it is, folks. And I think there is a chance that this could happen because of the way the Cardinals have been talking. They haven't talked like this in a long time. And you never know. This is the kind of thing they do, because I think he might be available, and that is Mike Trout. Have a good day, Viva. We'll see you later.